All right, so this is the solution for the challenge. And just to recap, I asked you guys if you could do 9 cards with 2 buttons. The first button spinning only the middle row, and the other button spins all of the cards and matches all 3 rows plus diagonals. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is actually to increase the number of cards that we have. And this is actually relatively simple. So we're going to go into, we're going to go down to where the card view is. And I gave you guys a tip last time where, you're not going to be able to just create 3 rows like this because you're going to get an error, which is not very helpful. It tells you that there's an error with this corner radius modifier, but that really isn't the case. The problem is that in this stack view that we have that contains everything, it's got more than 10 elements, and right now stack views can only have a max of 10. In fact, any sort of container layout element can only have up to 10. And so what we're going to do is encase these 3 H stacks, these are our 9 cards here, inside its own V stack. So I'm going to cut all of that. I'm going to declare a new, or write a new V stack there and just paste all 3 rows, and we should see all the cards. All right, so that's really cool. The next thing to do then, since we have so many cards, is to expand our numbers and backgrounds, because these 2 arrays represents the different slots or indexes for these cards, and now we have more than 3, so we need 9. So one easy way to do it is like you could just create more elements in your array literal like that, but there actually is a method for creating arrays if you want to fill it all with the same value. And I'm going to show you that in a second, but let me just show you this way right now. So there's 6 and there's 9. So you could do it like that, and you can have each of these indexes represent a different card. So we're going to erase this literal here, and we're going to declare a new array object, and we're going to use this initializer here. Creates a new collection containing the specified number of single repeated value. So the value is going to be, we're just going to put 0, and the count is going to be 9 for that. And then for this one, for backgrounds, we're going to do the same thing, array, and we're going to use this repeating one, and it's going to be color, white, and again 9. Then we can erase this literal here. All right, so that's what we have, and the next step is to update all of these card views. We're going to pass the appropriate bindings in. So this one is going to be at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? I almost counted 9. You guys probably caught that. So there's 3, this one's 4, this one's 5, this one's 6, 7, and 8. And if we just update this, we should see all of them as apples, right? Okay, so now the next step is to take a look at our spin button here. So what it does right here is it sets all the backgrounds to white, and then it randomizes a number for the 3 cards, and then it checks for the winnings. Like if 0 matches 1 and 1 matches 2, then you know that all 3 match, and then it updates the credits, and then it sets the background to green. So in the last lesson, when I finished the slots app, I taught you guys about the map method for arrays, and we're actually going to use it now, because setting 9 different backgrounds and randomizing 9 different cards and setting 9 different backgrounds to green is too much. So we're gonna make use of that map function here. But before that, we're going to abstract this code out into its own method. The reason being, right now we've written this code directly in the closure for the action for this button. But remember, we're going to have a second button that is going to have very similar code, because that button is going to set all the backgrounds white as well, but it's going to randomize all 9 cards, and it's going to set the backgrounds to the matches to green. And it's going to calculate the winnings as well. So rather than repeating this code, right, for 9 different cards, we're going to kind of abstract it out and write it more elegantly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method right here, right before the closing bracket of this body property. We're going to call it process results. All right, and we're going to need to know if we're processing the results for 1 spin or like the maximum number of spins, which is like all 3. So I'm going to have a boolean to say is max, and this is going to be a bool. All right, and let's default it to false. So by default, it's going to be a single spin. And I'm just going to take all of this code, in fact, all of the code for this button closure, for this action, and we're going to put it into here. And the first thing we're going to do is set all of the backgrounds for all of the cards to white. So instead of going 0 to 8, we're going to do self.backgrounds equals self.backgrounds.map, and we're going to open up that closure. We don't need this parameter part, and we're just going to return color.white. And just like that, we've set all the backgrounds to white. Maybe I can just get rid of this pane right there, and that's going to be a little easier to see. All right, now we're going to randomize the images, but this depends on whether we are doing a max spin or a single spin, right? So we're going to have to do an if statement. If is max, then spin all the cards, else spin the middle row. Right, so spinning the middle row, we're going to have to do it in 3 statements, and the middle row is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 3, 4, and 5, that's the middle row. Right, so we're going to do 3, 4, and 5. But for spinning all the cards, again, we can use the map function here. So self.numbers equals self.numbers.map, and we're going to open up that closure. We're going to remove this part because we don't need it, and we're going to say we're going to return int.random. Actually, I'm just going to copy this because it's the same thing for every single element. All right, so that's spinning all the cards or randomizing a number for every single index, and this is just randomizing for 3, 4, and 5. All right, and here's checking for the winnings. Now this is also more complicated now, because if we're spinning a single spin, then we only check the middle row, but if we're spinning max, then we got to check 1, 2, 3, and then the X, right? 4, 5. I check 5 different things. So rather than have it here, I'm going to write a different method down here called process win. And again, this is going to accept the parameter is max. We're just going to default it to false. Okay, so I'm going to take this chunk of code right here, and I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to paste it in here. Right, and then simply I'm going to call process win from here, and then pass in is max. Now, this is from up here, right? So this method is for processing the results, but in actuality, it's like just spinning all of the indexes or randomizing all the indexes. This is for processing the win, which is to, we're going to check basically all of the matches. So let's declare So with a single row, that was easy, right? If it matches, then you win. If it doesn't matches, then you lose. But for a max spin, because there are so many different matches that can happen, you can match, you can match 1, you can match 2, you can match all 5. So we need to keep track of how many matches you've made. And so I'm going to create a variable here. I'm going to call it matches equals 0. We'll initialize it to 0, and then we're going to keep count. So we're going to first check the case where isMax equals false. So let's say this is a single spin, right? I put this inequality here. This means that if it's not isMax, then we are processing for a single spin. So we've already got this here, right? Except we're not checking 0, 1, and 2, we're checking 3, 4, and 5. So if 3 equals 4 and 4 also equals 5, then that means there's a single match, and we update the backgrounds 3, 4, and 5 to green, right? And 1, I would instead of doing this, we're gonna update the number of credits at the very end based on how many matches there were. So in here, instead of updating this, the credits balance here, we're just gonna say matches plus equals 1. Okay, so that is if the case is not isMax, if it's a single spin. Else, processing for max spin. And I'm going to remove this code so we don't kind of confuse ourselves. This was the code from before. And then, after we process for max spin, this is going to require a couple of different if statements, right? So I'm gonna shorten it after I write it this way, just so you guys are aware. But right now we're going to check row by row. So we're going to say top row, and this would be 0. Does 0 equal to 1? Does 1 equals to 2? If so, matches plus 1, and turn these cards green. Okay, now we check middle row. So middle row is, we've already got the code from up here, so I literally just pasted it here. If the middle row matches, then matches plus equal 1. This is bottom row. Bottom row is 6, 7, 8. So 6 equals to 7, and 7 equals to 8. Then we're going to update 6, 7, and 8 to green. We've got 2 more to do. So diagonal top left to bottom right. So that this would be 0 with 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 with 4, and this would be 8. So 0, 4, and 8. Okay, and then we've also got diagonal top right to bottom left, and this would be 0, 1, 2, 2, 4, and 6. Okay, and finally, that's good. Finally, check matches and distribute credits. So if matches is greater than 0, then that means that there is a win, right? If else, that means if it comes into here, that means matches is 0 or less than 0, which it can't be less than 0, so it's just 0. Else if not isMax, so this is at least 1 win. This is 0 wins, single spin, and then lastly it's 0 wins, max spin. So if it's 0 wins, single spin, then we're going to do self.credits is minus equals a bet amount. So we had a bet amount up here, which represents how many credits gets spent for a single spin. And I'm going to do it so that for the max spin, I'm going to do it 5 times the amount of a single spin. So it's going to deduct 25 credits instead. All right, but if you win, then you're going to get more credits back based on the number of matches you have. So matches times bet amount, but you usually have to win more than you bet, more than the amount that you just bet. So I'm going to say you're going to get 2 times back. If you make a match, you're going to get 2 times back, and multiplied by the number of matches you made. So that's going to be the math there. And now let's add, before we optimize this kind of long chunk of code here, I want to add a second button here just so we can start testing it and just making sure that this code is right before we go and shorten it. So let's go back up here for our single spin button. Remember, I had removed the action, but now I can call process results, right? And isMax by default is equal to false. So I'm just gonna, say that. Process a single spin, right? And furthermore, I actually want to put some text down here to say how many credits it costs. So I'm gonna say vstack, and I'm gonna put a text element here. I'm gonna say 5 credits, and I'm gonna take this button and I'm gonna put it into this vstack like that. And so we should see a little label down there that says 5 credits. Let's resume. All right, so I spelled credits wrong. Okay, I'm going to optimize it a little bit. So I'm going to add some padding to the top. Let's say 10. And I'm also going to change the font to like a caption style. So it's a little smaller. That's really small. Let's try footnote. That's slightly better. That's fine. And instead of 5, I'm actually going to sub in the bet amount in case we change that variable at the top. So that's still going to be 5. All right. Now we are going to put this in an H stack because we have a second button, remember. So in H stack, we're going to take this button here. We're going to pop it in there, and we're going to add a second button. So I just pasted it twice, so now we have a second one. This one's going to be called max spin. The amount of credits is going to be bet amount times 5, so that's 25. And instead of just processing results, we're going to pass in true to indicate that this is a max spin. And I'm going to add some spacing in between those 2 buttons. So this H stack has an initializer, this one. So alignment, we don't need to specify that. The default alignment is fine. Spacing, I'm going to put 20. And this content closure is, we already have this right there. Like this, all this stuff is that parameter, that content parameter. Okay, so let's save this. Let's run this and see if this actually works. All right, so single spin. Oh, match right away. That's a win. All right, max spin. Cool. Wait, that was a weird. I think I saw a weird green pattern. We might, yeah, this, oh wait, this is a match. Yeah, okay, so row, diagonal. Will I still end up making money or losing money? These are credits. This is not money. We are not gambling here. I think we're going down. We're just dying a slow death here. And at this point, I'm borrowing money to gamble. I mean, The loan sharks. All right, this is cool. So it's working. Let's optimize this code here, because if you take a look at all of these parts that we have here, the code is exactly the same, but the only difference is that the indexes are different, right? See, this code is checking these three indexes, 0, 1, and 2, and then setting it to green if it's a match. This section is checking 3, 4, and 5. So we can create a different method here, and we're going to call this isMatch, and you're going to have to pass in the three indexes. So we're going to have index 1 as an int, index 2 as an int, index 3 as an int, and it's going to return a bool. So it's going to return false by, you know, if it reaches there, but first it's going to, well, it's basically going to check this. If self.numbers index 1 is equal to self.numbers index 2 and self.numbers index 2 is equal to self.numbers index 3, then this is considered a match, and we return true. And what we can also do is just also set the backgrounds to green as well. But instead of hard coding those indexes, we would have index 2 and index 3. And it's basically a repeat of this code. I don't know why I typed it out. See, I typed something wrong. Oh, there should be a space right there. All right, so now we can call this isMatch method instead of all of this code here. So for example, for this one, we're going to call, you know, we can do if isMatch and pass in 3, 4, and 5. And if this is true, then we can do matches plus equals 1, right? Because our method doesn't increase the matches number. I mean, we keep track of this in here in the process win, and then we can delete this whole chunk of code. And if you want to shorten it, if you want to shorten even more, you can, you know, you can put it in one line like that. So then this becomes, you just change these numbers 0, 1, and 2. You can get rid of that. Middle row becomes 3, 4, and 5. This becomes 6, 7, and 8. This becomes 0, 4, and 8. I accidentally keep pressing Command B. That's 2, 4, and 6. Four and 6. So that actually saves a lot of code, and you know, it's going to make updating this a lot easier, maintaining it, I mean, and it also looks a lot better. So let's just run it again and make sure nothing's broken. You know what would be cool is if we did a jackpot type thing. Like if you get, I don't know, you can do, you know, those slot machines at the casino, different configurations kind of give you like different amounts. Right now we have a standard amount just for 3 matches, but if you had a couple more symbols in here, you could do some, maybe if you get like all cherries or something, you just get an explosion of credits. But anyways, that does it for this one. That's the challenge that I wanted to do. I'll leave the jackpot thing to you if you want to implement that. If you do end up doing that, definitely shoot me a screenshot on Twitter or Instagram, tag me, and I'll show it off. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson.